Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Words from Our Mouths. This is probably one of the more difficult episodes we'll have to do. I unfortunately James is still with us, so now that that's out of the way, we can get going. James, how have you been?
It was so hard not to interrupt you.
I knew you'd struggle. You're
I was
such a
literally
child.
biting my lip. For everyone who's now a little bit confused, 90% of the time when Pete does the opening, I interrupt him. I just shout the word penis or something like that.
And he keeps the outtakes.
He told me especially I'm not allowed to do it this week. It was hard.
You bet you say that a lot, don't you?
It's always hard.
Oh dear, no, I shouldn't have lowered the tone. This is my fault.
Well, I raised the penis, but...
Don't stop it, please. What have you done this last week, James? What have you done? Let's change the subject.
I had a barbecue.
You did have... Oh, tell me more.
People came over. I barbecued meat.
I don't care about the people.
It was enjoyable.
The food.
Okay, right, so... Annoyingly, we couldn't go where we normally go for the burgers, because...
Okay.
What is your preferred sort of burger?
A big one.
Do you prefer, like, the high-quality, real meat burgers you get at, like, a bistro pub, that sort of thing? Or do you prefer the bottom-of-the-barrel burger van burgers?
It depends what mood I'm in. Because...
Personally, I prefer the bottom-of-the-barrel burger van burgers.
I was going to say, like, them, I can eat loads of them at once. Whereas if you have a real chunky, real meat one, it's nice, but I generally only eat one and then I'm done.
I have a cash and carry card, so I can go to our local cash and carry.
To get 300 burgers for a tenner.
It's 40 for £8, I think it is.
That's still a good deal.
So 50p a burger. So when you go to a burger van, they charge you £5 a burger. They charge you £4.50 for the bun, apparently.
Yeah.
No, profit margins and all that lot, and maintenance costs and everything. That's fine. But my outside freezer broke. My freezer in the garage broke like 2-3 months ago, and I've not replaced it yet. So I've got nowhere to put a box of burgers.
That's like an absolute priority replacement. What are you doing?
Weddings and going to Manchester, and I've got a holiday to book next
cancel
month.
all of those plans and say, I'm sorry, I need a fucking big freezer.
But it's on the list to get a big freezer. I'm at this point, I've been doing well without it. I might try and wait till like Prime Day or Black Friday or something like that.
What's above the list on the big freezer?
Going to Turkey.
Why is that above the list? No, you need a big freezer to store turkeys in. You're getting things all confused. Is the warm weather getting to you?
Maybe. But anyway, so we couldn't get the really nice burgers, but we still got cheap bird's eye burgers, but the ones where you have to put like 3 in a bun to make it worth it.
Yes, I understand.
So there was 10 of us that went. 2 of them were young kids, like 3 and under 1. So they had a burger between them, I think. So for the 8 of us, I bought 30 burgers.
That's not enough. I don't like that ratio.
I also had 20 sausages.
Yes.
A pack of bratwurst, which was, I think, 8 of bratwurst in there. Then we had garlic and herb chicken kebabs. And then we had chicken and chorizo chili kebabs.
All this is amazing.
Then we had sweet and smoky beef, like kofti kebab sort of things.
Oh, God, I'm going to blow up.
Then we had barbecue corn.
Yeah.
And barbecue trout.
Oh, you lost me at that one. But everything else sounds fantastic.
Good. I'm not a fish fan, but barbecue trout is fucking stunning.
I was put off... Did I tell you why I was put off fish? And it still affects me now. It was like 3 years ago or something stupid. I got food poisoning from a takeaway, from an Indian takeaway. Nothing to do with fish. But the next day, the last meal I ate before the food poisoning symptoms kicked in was fish. And because that was all I threw up, I cannot look like... It was this really nice sort of lemon and herb breaded... even thinking about it makes my mouth water, like before you sit. But like I was eating it like 3-4 times a week because it was just... I just had fish and rice because it's dead easy to make. And
fish and rice cake.
No, not that. But it's actually knocking me sick the thought of it now, and I hate it because once my symptoms went away and I was hungry again, the first thing I wanted was an Indian takeaway, and I knew that was what caused it. The fish was fine, but it's so annoying. And I'm not like a huge fish fan, but it's now something that I just can't eat anymore. Like even fish fingers. I used to have a fish finger butty all the time, but I can't do that anymore.
I'm not a fish fan at all. I never have been. I like the seafood sticks you get from like Sainsbury's and stuff because there's no fish in them.
No, they're horrible though.
Them coated in vinegar are good.
I look at them and I expect like strawberry pencil flavour, but it's not what you get.
I like tuna, coated in mayo and all that lot. Oh god, it's good.
So hide the flavour of the tuna.
Yeah, pretty much. And barbecue trout. They are my lists of fish that I like. And I like the really low quality fish cakes, which are more potato than fish as well. But that's
yeah,
basically
I like those too, actually. Yeah,
it's just, them in a sandwich is good, but that's pretty much just a hash brown sandwich, isn't it?
I think I might still be able to manage a fish cake, and I can still eat cod from a chippy as well, because I'm northern. But I think I could probably manage.
It has to be coated in gravy, correct?
Well, yeah, gravy or curry. It's got to be in something. I take it in beans actually. Fish and beans is nice, but I could probably manage. The tinned mackerel in tomato and herb.
Oh God, no.
I could probably manage that.
That's a really strong, oily fish.
I know, but I don't know why that one in particular doesn't bother me. But I think it's mostly like breaded fish really that would bother me. But which is like fish fingers and stuff. Yeah.
Also, my nana's this thing of having tinned pilchards in tomato sauce, and she'll have them at lunchtime, and I'll come home like 5 hours later, and the smell instantly makes me retch.
They do stink.
I don't like fish.
I've had a muted sense of smell for a few years now, so that really
still
helps.
Smell that.
Yeah, I probably would. The only things I can really smell are bad smells. So, like, if Charlotte farts, which she does far too regularly, especially in the car, I'm saying it loud so she hears me. What happens is we're driving, and then...
I just want to hear the funk of her hitting you behind the back of the end.
It'll probably happen. But we'll be driving, and... like we could have been talking, but then the car will just go quiet. But there's a certain kind of silence that's like tangible, and I just know that she's got this stupid grin on her face from the passenger side, just waiting for me to notice. And if I notice her face before I notice the smell, I'll refuse to sniff up. I'll just put the windows down because she's just this weird. It's not like a genuine happy. It's like a shit-eating smile. You know what I mean? Like it's like
I was about to use the term shit-eating smile.
Yeah, it's like because like when she's got a really lovely smile, but this one it gives her like an underbite, like and her front teeth stick out about a meter, and it's like her face is tilted down and her nose is pointed up, and she's just glaring at me. And she would sound like this if she spoke while she was doing the smile, because it's just one of those. Yeah, and probably. Ugh, it's one of the few things that I can actually smell, and I don't know what she eats because I'm at work when she eats most of the time. I don't know what it is she puts in her body, but when it comes out, it smells what I imagine like Chernobyl to smell like. It is horrible.
You sound like, I know we've got a car journey, like I'm going to eat some cat shit.
She saves them for the car. It's like, if she did it in the house, I would smell it. If she doesn't, she saves it for the car. She waits till we're in a confined space when I can't escape, and then lets out the stinkiest chemical warfare I've ever experienced. And for someone who looks just like, so pretty and quiet, sat in the corner there with a lovely blonde hair and a dainty little nose, and that comes out of her arsehole.
I thought her hair was blue last time I saw.
It's been blue, purple, pink, red, yellow. She's making her way back to blonde slowly.
Do you notice? Do you come home and like not notice it's changed colour? Does she
I come home expecting it to change. Some days I'll come home and say, "Have you dyed your hair?" And she'll be like, "No." It's like, "Oh, just checking, just in case it has changed and it's not enough of me to notice." Yeah,
keep a chart on the wall.
It's got to be rough on her hair. The amount of colour changes.
My cousin's the same. Fucking.
She's got really thick, healthy hair though. It's like, how when you put that much bleach on it all the time, like.
My cousin at one point had like 5 colours in her hair, and I think she's got 3 at the minute. But yeah, her hair now feels dead.
Yeah, well, hers doesn't. I don't know how. Lucky bitch. Mine's all. I've just got a massive bald patch. I don't think I've got a.
It's because you're a grumpy old man.
I come with a sunroof. It's.
But you are the definition of a grumpy old man, aren't you, Pete?
Yeah, I very much. In fact, I was just talking to someone in one of the Discord servers about how I had my first experience with a Nintendo Switch recently. We've got one at work. There's a telly at work. What?
Switch is great.
But I'm not a huge Nintendo fan. Other than the Game Boy, I've never really fully enjoyed or spent much time with what they do. I looked at this one for like 90 minutes tops, I think, like over. I got a decent feel for the console. I find it very uncomfortable to hold, and I don't know.
I don't like holding it as a Switch. What you need to do,
when you
it's
put it
ridiculous because the benefit of the Switch is the fact it's portable.
Yeah,
but you should have it docked in the TV and then buy the Pro controller.
Well, I don't know what the Pro controller's like, but when you take the Joy-Cons off the side,
the Pro controller is just like a normal controller.
Right. Okay. Well, this has it's like a controller detachment, I guess. So you take the things off the side while it's docked, and you slap them onto a controller-sized unit. But I think what they've done.
They're okay, those ones.
They're okay, but they've made huge sacrifices to the comfort and operation of a games controller to make this mini joystick, the mini controller gimmick work. I'm sick of gimmicks. Joy-Con, whatever it is. I'm sick of the gimmicks from Nintendo. Ever since the Wii, it's like, fuck off. Just make a games console. Like, there's very little you can do with a Nintendo Wii or a Wii U that would make me sit there and play like a 40-50 hour game, because after half an hour I'm just bored of your control scheme because I have to adjust the way I play.
The thing is if you are going to play games like that, I'm about to send you a link live on the podcast. No one else can see this, but for those of you that are curious, it's a Pro controller for the Switch.
Okay, but this is fine, and I understand that is an option.
Have a look at that link before we can have this conversation.
Okay, so it's like an Xbox controller.
Yeah, it's a proper controller.
Yeah.
If you are playing games like Breath of the Wild, or you're sitting and playing full AAA or similar RPG story games, you want to get a Pro controller.
All right.
But when you're just playing things like Mario Party or Mario Kart or Smash or anything like that, the fun games, the whole point of the Switch, the reason it was made, is that party game you pass the controller around every 5 minutes sort of thing.
I understand that, and it has a lot of merits in that regard. Now, but my issue with it as, like, other than a gimmick party game thing, which, let's face it, at a party you could do without. There are plenty of other group activities you can do without a Nintendo Switch. You know, considering the price point, buy a Monopoly or something. You can entertain people. Nope, don't buy and play it with me. I will flip the table if I start losing. But, you know, there are plenty of other things that you could do that are not central to the Switch. And so what you're telling me here is that I can buy a Nintendo Switch, and if I want to play a more serious game, say I wanted to play like Skyrim or The Witcher on it, which is, you know, involving single player experience. In order to do so comfortably, you're telling me I'd have to then spend a further £50 on a controller to play it, and I'd have it docked in the thing, and it would play on my TV, and I would play Skyrim or The Witcher on essentially low settings because the Switch isn't very powerful. So
no, especially the second generation ones, they are very powerful. They're not the same as a PS5. I don't think they're 4K.
But the point I'm trying to make,
they're as good as the previous generation. They're as good as the PS4.
Okay, well that's fine. But the point I'm trying to make is that the only games on there that would draw me to it as a player, and I'm speaking only for myself. I'm not trying to tell people the Switch is bad, because it's got lots of merits, and I'm sure it's great for the people who like it. But for me, it doesn't. There's no reason for me to have a Switch over, say, an Xbox, because
that's the point, that the Switch isn't supposed to replace, isn't marketed.
But there's no reason for me to own one as well as an Xbox.
If you want an Xbox or a PS5 or anything like that to play serious console gaming, you buy an Xbox or PS5. Yeah. What Nintendo did was, it started with the Wii. The Wii U was a flop, granted, but it started with the Wii. Was really smart, and they hit the one other market, which is families.
Yeah, they did.
Because you said, granted, yes, you can play Monopoly and all that lot, but does mum, dad, the 16-year-old, the 12-year-old actually want to play Monopoly?
Well, yeah, if you engage them properly.
They don't. They may do it once a year. They're not going to want to play it weekly, are they?
Probably not, no. But
Switch does.
Then you could.
There are families that do sit and play the Switch as a family activity once a week. It's either that or sit and watch the TV, and at least it's a bit more engaging. It's a bit more social. It uses a bit of brain ability.
It's still not enough of a selling point for what it is.
And then adds the fact that the big...
You're selling
it's
a
not
party
for you. The thing
activity.
Is, the Switch isn't going to sell for you because it's not marketed to you.
Well, it's a good job, really, because I'd have been very pissed off if it was.
It's not marketed to you. They pretty much Nintendo accepted that they'd lost the console war, and it was between Xbox and PlayStation. They've been dropped out of that.
So, but you see, now, the party game aspect thing, you can also manage with a PlayStation and an Xbox.
PlayStation,
they don't have as many games designed specifically to be party games, but I think the reason that the Nintendo does have so many party design games is because it doesn't do anything else very well. So its only selling points are still drawbacks.
The thing is, if you think of what is the biggest party game you can think of?
I don't play many, to be honest with you. I would probably pull Mario Kart out of a bag.
There you go, exactly. That's the one I was thinking. But Mario Kart is the selling point of the Switch.
Yeah, but there are so many Mario Kart clones that you would have just as much fun with on other things.
They're just not. Being a clone, they're never just as good. So I have a Switch.
Crash Team Racing is far superior to Mario Kart in every single way. Far superior with regards to gameplay depth and enjoyability. Is so much better.
I have a Switch. I had no intention really of going out and buying one. My little brother wanted one, so my dad got him one. And then my dad, being my dad, and not very smart and a bit lazy and trying to buy my love, bought me a Switch.
Well,
he was like, okay, Luke wants one, do you want one? I was like, well, I'm not opposed to having one. I like the idea of having one. It could be fun, and I do use it when people come over and we play party games, basically. But that is the only time it ever gets used, is with other people over. It's like looking at it now, it's sat on my desk in front of me, and it's got dust on it.
Yeah,
Same as my PS4.
But this is my problem with it, is that it's so situational. It's like I've got 3 controllers for my Xbox that I've just accumulated over time, and I don't need to buy. I don't know how third-party controllers work with Switch. This is the first I've seen a price of the Switch controller. So
no, third-party Joy-Cons aren't a bad price.
Okay, so buying third-party stuff is fine, but if you've already got a console, just buy third-party controllers for that and play a party game. Especially with something like Game Pass available now, which is filled with things like shitty little party games like that. Stuff that's only good occasionally when everyone's around and in a good mood anyway. Which is the only time Switch party games are enjoyable as well. Like there is obviously a select few people, but like who the hell's sitting there playing Smash all day on their own?
People are, granted, yeah.
I know there's some people are, but there are also some people playing.
There is one other market we're not allowing for, which absolutely adore the Switch, and they did the Wii, and they made the Wii the 3rd best-selling console of all time.
What's that?
The Japanese market, the Asian market in general, but specifically the Japanese market, they absolutely adore it. The Nintendo and the Switch, that party game vibe.
I never said it wasn't a success. I never said that it didn't have appeal.
But I'm saying that's the thing that the Switch is. It's not aimed at us.
No.
But then at the end of the day, neither of us are going to go out and buy a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, whatever the fuck it's called.
I'd buy a Series X.
Would you?
Yeah, I don't have the disposable income at the moment. Probably, yeah. I would get my money's worth out of it.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Why would you buy Series X? What does the Series X have that your PC can't do?
Well, it's the same reason I play other console. I still use my Xbox One.
Yeah, but don't you use that generally for exclusives that aren't on PC?
No, I play like Fallout and stuff on it. I play vanilla games. Oh. Yeah, I play all sorts
for me,
on there.
the reason I have a PS4 was for exclusives. Basically, the reason I bought a PS4 was for Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
I have no intention of buying and The Last of Us. Actually, I quite enjoyed that, the PS4 and The Last of Us 2.
All right, okay.
I have no intention of buying a PS5 or Series X because there is nothing on it that makes me want to get a PC. Blah.
I understand, right? But this is the whole PC Master Race thing. Now, I understand what you're saying, and objectively speaking, the power of a PC is not matched by a console. The flexibility of what you can do on a PC will probably never be matched by a console as long as the design stays the way it is. Now, what I will say to that...
The issue with the console is the price point. They need to sell to the general public. These days, you can't get a decent enough to play AAA games gaming PC for less than about $600-700 unless you're going second hand. Yeah. You're talking 7, even to the 1,000 these days. You're going to start struggling below that because the size of games as well.
Yeah, and you like you say, the drawbacks of the console is they need to hit a quality point and price point that's a middle ground that people will buy it for. And I totally understand where that comes into, because the majority of the marketing is going to be at parents buying it for the kids for Christmas, birthdays, whatever. So, because if they did up the price to £700-800, then you would find people my age would still buy them for the power of them because they would understand the value of it, and it would be my own money, so who the hell cares? Now, the point I was going to make about actually using a console instead of using the PC. Now, I've got 3 or 4 games on my Steam library that do not work natively, that I have to find workarounds for, but I also own them on Xbox, and I just press the icon and they launch. No issues. And
again,
they play fully.
We're going to the old games.
Yeah.
Granted, there are benefits, and there are benefits to old consoles. I'm not denying that. The fact is, if there was something I was thinking of playing the other day, which is only on the 360, and then when I bought one, you can get a 360 for like a tenner.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
But right now, there's nothing that makes me want to buy a modern console.
Well, I would buy a modern console.
You still can't get PS5s.
Well, no, you can get Series X's now.
You can get Series X's quite quickly afterwards, just because no one fucking wants it.
Well, but why? Why do people want the PS5 over the Series X?
The key thing always between the two consoles was exclusives, and PlayStation is now winning on exclusives.
Based on superhero games, as far as I can hear, which is just like the most mind-numbing gameplay loop I've ever seen in my life. Like what? And this is coming from someone who spent most of his teen years playing Counter-Strike. So believe me, I know brain rot when I see it. And the games that you call it the best exclusive, like even if you go back in time when people were touting about The Last of Us brought nothing to the game scene that hadn't already been seen. And the people who were praising it, blowing smoke up its ass, quite frankly, hadn't played enough games to have a fucking opinion on that. They were saying,
The Last of Us has a brilliant story.
But it doesn't have it's nothing you haven't seen anywhere. I played 4 hours of The Last of Us and then I gave up because I was just tired of the fucking cliche shit. It's the most meat and potato design game I've ever seen. First of all, it tries to bring you in with an emotional hook that you haven't had time to establish with anybody. I don't give a shit if a little girl's dying on the screen if I don't know her name yet. Do you know what I mean? I've known these people 3 minutes. Yeah, it's sad the little girl dies, but you're setting your game in a post-apocalyptic world. There's going to be a million stories like this. Why should this one matter? You're not drawing me in yet, and you're trying to get me to feel something. Second of all, it's like at least Gears of War has the balls to admit that all it is a fucking on the rail shooter with third person. So when you walk into what's as obviously a combat arena with waist high cover that you can take cover behind, you know it's going to be combat because that's the entire thing of the game. And then The Last of Us does it, and it's just like one of the first fight scenes. You walk onto like the roof of a building, and suddenly there's loads of like aircon units and stuff like that to hide behind. It's like this isn't what the top of a building fucking looks like. You've had to adjust it for your game, and my immersion's broken again. Like what is actually so good about it? What does it offer?
I just loved the story. I thought it was really well written. The music was used well. Yes, it's full of cliches and all that lot, but in all honesty, quite a lot of the time, if I'm playing an RPG, I want the cliches. I like cliche RPGs, but then I like cliche films,
okay,
so
that's fine.
I like cliches.
And relying on cliches is great. And maybe my view was tainted by the fact that so many people had talked it up to me, because I played it a few years after release. But people telling me it's going to change my life and be the best game I've ever played, I go into it with really high expectations to be met with a mediocre third-person action game with a story full of cliches, which just, because it's full of cliches, it tells me in black and white it's bringing nothing new to the scene.
See, I went into The Last of Us, because I played it late as well, obviously. I went into The Last of Us expecting a mediocre game with a good story, and that's exactly what I got.
If I'd have gone into that, because I've owned The Witcher 3 since launch. I've never
into The Witcher, so I can't compare to this one.
Well, I've played The Witcher 2, like half of it. It's a good game, it's fine. But that was before anybody had told me to play it. It came up on when Xbox, I think they still do it, when you get games with gold, you get a couple of free games, whatever it is. It came up as one of those one time. I downloaded it, and I had a blast for the time I played it. Can't remember why I didn't finish it. I'm just easily distracted. Now, I got The Witcher 3 on release. Oh, well, it was like a couple of months after release when they did a weird like 35% off sale or whatever. And it sat in my games library. I have never launched it, and I'm afraid to launch it because people give it such high praise that I know that I'm going to go in and nitpick. I know I'm going to go in and just think like, this isn't the best game ever. This is just a good game, and it's going to let me down.
From what I've heard, it wasn't a revolutionary game. It's not. It's very hard to be revolutionary in an RPG these days. Very hard.
It's very hard to be revolutionary with anything, especially when you consider.
But from what I've heard, it is a very well made and polished RPG.
Well,
I've not played The Witcher. I can't get into them.
Maybe it is, but
it's supposed to be one. It is supposed to be one of the good ones, and that is talking from friends that are like us and have played way too many games. That's part of our problem. If you play too many games as well.
But I've been spoiled. But then see, some of my favourite games and some of the games that stick out in my memory, some of the games that I'll repeatedly go back and play, are inherently flawed. Like there are games that I would class as some of my favourite games that I cannot wholeheartedly recommend to people because I know that the first impression of it would be people going like, what the fuck am I playing here? Why would you recommend this to me?
See, my game, if anyone ever asked me to recommend them a game, there's always one I recommend, and you probably know what it is if you think about it. And that game very much thinks you, what the fuck am I doing? But it's the best game ever.
Portal.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But that's a well-crafted experience. Portal it's one of those games.
When you first play Portal, you go, "What on earth is going on?" First time I played, I'm thinking, I recommended it. I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then you get to the end, and you realise that it was good, and then you play it again and again and again and again and again.
But you see now
and you sing the whole time you're playing through it now.
Yeah, but the problem that I think I have. So I was going to say the problem people have. It's not. I can't speak for people. Stop singing. The problem I have with going into games nowadays is that we live in a world of unreasonable expectations with stuff like that. Now, there are a couple of reasons that we live in a world of unreasonable expectations. One is because we're all spoilt bitches, and we all expect
marketing.
Yes, marketing is a problem, but we're all spoilt bitches, and we all expect improvements and fixes and things to just get objectively better as things go on. And a huge part of that problem is that as consumers, generally, we don't know what we want until we've got it. When somebody gives us something that's good and functional and fun, then we know we liked it. But if we were to, like, collectively, all people who play video games, to sit down and design a game that catered to everybody, it'd be a fucking mess. An absolute mess, because we don't know what we want until we get it. The other part is the fact that developers are so keen to promise things that they don't deliver on. They're so keen to put an idea out just to get people excited, because it's just a money-making scam at the end of the day. They prey on people's nostalgic feelings towards old games. They prey on what's generally popular at the time, things like that. So like the amount of battle royale games that came out when Fortnite took off.
It was PUBG that called Force.
PUBG, that's what I meant. PUBG, that's what I meant. But the amount of games.
This is what I was going to say. Is the problem? One of the problems we have is people do flock to hype games. As much as I hate to say it, part of the problem of the gaming industry is the gamers. Because for argument's sake, granted,
it's the biggest problem.
It's changing this year, but one of the best-selling games every year is FIFA. Yeah. Every single year, it's always one of the best-selling games, and it is the same as the year before. Slightly improved graphics, slightly tweaked engine. Repeat.
Well, over time, it does change. So, like,
time, it has made massive changes, but year by year, it doesn't. You could skip 2-3 years worth.
Well, I was just going to say,
FIFA were nice enough to update the leagues and all that lot, and all the transfers and all that lot, and give you that option. You could do it. What they should
is give the community the option to update it, because there are people,
because they know that every 12 months they're going to get.
Okay,
it's like £70 now for AAA. The new Call of Duty is going to be $70.
What happened to the fact when they said that digital releases were going to be a thing, which they are?
They're going to be cheaper.
Yeah, they said the production costs will be less, and therefore we can pass the saving on to the game. That's what every developer was saying. Every publisher was saying.
They were cheaper at first.
Were they?
A digital version was like £5-10 cheaper than a physical one, but that only lasted for about 6 months because everybody bought digital.
So they just upped the price, digital. Yeah.
But then these days, the way I think you see it these days is you're paying for a digital price. If you get a physical version, you've got that little free bit, the printing of the disc and all that lot, and the sending of the case and everything.
Yeah,
that's free now. The game is a £70 game, however you get it. But sometimes you get a free disc if you want.
Well, I prefer to have the disc.
But yeah, it depends on the game.
It depends on the game. So yeah, I agree with that. It depends on the game, because you don't want just games cluttering everywhere. I've got rid of 300 Xbox 360 games, and that's a big relief to have them all gone.
As a stupid one, it slightly annoys me now that the last few WoW expansions have not been digital release. The last few. The last one I bought a physical copy of was 4. We're on 8 now.
Is it,
but I've still got the original, so I've got my original. Yeah, expansion number 8.
I've got my original somewhere. Is that what it was called?
Battle Chess came out later. That was when there was 3 of them. But obviously, I've got an original version of the game, and it comes with a little, as well as being the case with 4 discs in, I believe where I was. The front opens up, and it's the advert is it's not just a 1-page splash screen on the front. It's 4 pages worth of it. And then Burning Crusade did the same, and all the way up to Cataclysm did the same. After that, they went digital, and you don't have that anymore. It's a bit annoying because they're in good condition as well. I'm pointing at my crotch because they're actually just slightly below that on the ottoman that I rest my feet on.
I'm glad we can't see that.
But they're in that box and they look pretty good and they're sat in there. I've also got a collector's edition of Assassin's Creed. I believe it's Brotherhood. where to open the box you had to slide the Assassin's Creed logo up, and the top opened up, and then the CD case the DVD case, what we want to call it, came out, and then there was a little book in there and an art book, and I think there's a soundtrack CD in there, and I like that. That's a collector's edition, obviously. That's a bit different. But just a generic, also was seeing this, God of War on the PS4 is currently sat on my desk, and just it's generic blue PlayStation 4 controller thing, and a box thing, sorry, and the only reason I bought it disc is because it was a £5 over Christmas one year.
This is what I was about to mention, is that I prefer to have the disc for a couple of reasons. One is that if the service that I bought the game off should somehow be cancelled and then become inaccessible or whatever, you like specifically games that are constantly updated. So like older games don't really have that problem. I also try and buy off GOG instead of Steam now because it's all mine. Whereas if Steam goes down, I can't access my games. So there's also when I buy games for my Xbox, I buy pre-owned games, which immediately drops the price by like 75% in most cases. So I make huge savings, and it's another reason that I'm usually very behind on upgrading my console. So I got the Xbox One like 3 years after it released or something like that, and
I got my PS4 3.5 years ago. Was when I bought a PS4. I bought a Pro, granted, but that's when I got a PS4.
Yeah,
that was updating from an Xbox. Well, I got Xbox One on release actually, but I sold it like 6 months later because there was no games that interested me on it.
But it's one of the reasons that I don't get a console on release, is because like if I mean, to be fair, I would probably be better off making the switch to PlayStation, because when those consoles release, typically there's a Ratchet and Clank game available, and I love Ratchet and Clank. But at the same time, it's not enough for me to justify dropping money on a console. I would need a bigger library of games, and the reason I've stuck with Xbox is because the backwards compatibility is so smoothly integrated, because I've got a lot of games that I still haven't got around to playing, and at the minute I can still go up to a Series X and still play all of those 360 games I've not played yet, because it's just that easy. I'm
just googling at the minute. A PS5 is £500.
Yeah.
Fucking hell! Apparently they're available in Plymouth at the minute.
I was going to say, people who I work with have been managing to get hold of them as well, so the availability is broadening.
Apparently, Argos. Oh no, sorry. I actually clicked on it. Sorry, it's unavailable. Argos don't have any at the minute.
They are more frequently available though. It's getting easier to get hold of them.
And you can't actually because for a long time people had it. You could buy them, and then when they got one, they'd send them in stock. No, Argos aren't even doing that anymore at the minute. It's insane how long it's been out of stock. I know it's not actually. Obviously, consoles have been going out of stock for years. They'd always spend 6 months out of stock and then come back. Obviously, how long's the PS5 been out now?
Oh, it's been a while. Many years? A year? 2 years?
2019, so 2 years now.
Yeah. My God.
Officially, 2020 at least, officially. So yeah, 2 years it's been out. So it's 2 years it's been out of stock, and they said they're still out of stock. But that's not completely Sony's fault. There's a international chip shortage at the minute.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's not like they're not trying to push them out.
One thing I did like with them actually is the fact that they did the two versions. I thought that was quite clever.
What was the two versions? One with a disc tray,
one with a disc, one without.
Yeah,
the one without was £90 cheaper.
Yes, they've done something similar with the Xbox. You get the Series X and the Series S.
Yeah. But for both of them, I thought that was a clever idea, because some people do want a disc drive, granted, but if you don't want one, why are you paying for one?
Well, yeah, exactly. But I would get the disc drive, but...
see, I probably wouldn't bother.
I would, but only because I've got discs that I want to use. So
yeah, see,
I have a reason to get one with a disc drive already.
Yeah,
no, I'm not going to get one
with God of War on
the intention of getting discs. Sorry, go on. Your turn.
We both kept trying to talk at the same time, then we both stopped for each other. Yeah, see, I've got God of War as a disc. The only reason I got it disc is because it was cheap. But I'm sure, to be honest, at the time I bought it, I could have probably got it cheap on PSN anyway.
Probably. The sales have been really good recently. I've got to credit Microsoft and Sony for that. Because traditionally the sales on Steam would be 75-90% off, and then you'd check on a console and it'd be like, oh, you can get 10% off these 3 games.
Yeah.
What's that all about? But recently I subscribe to Xbox Game Pass. I get the Ultimate one, so it's for PC as well. I honestly, I understand that there are going to be plenty of people out there that will look through the Game Pass library and think none of these games appeal to me, and that's fine.
I don't believe that. There are so many games on
there
Game
are
Pass.
loads
There's
of games.
going to be something
and also it's once you've subscribed to it, you've got that library to try as well. Do you know what I mean? There's 200 games there for you to just install one on a whim, give it a
The
go.
only thing
And if
that
you
slightly
don't like
annoys
it,
me
you
is
get rid.
they remove games from it as well.
Yeah, they do. But it's not like there's not a vast pool of games there. And what I try to do is, if I enjoyed a game I played on Game Pass, I'll then buy it afterwards so that I've got it. Because I'm one of those who'll replay games. So, but there are people who won't, aren't there? There are people who spend their entire gaming career. That's not really the right word. They will buy a game. So before digital copies were available as much, they would buy a game, play it, trade it in, get some money off the next game they want to play, which is just
That's what I used to do.
Yeah, well,
the reason I did that wasn't because I couldn't replay games, it's because that was all I could afford.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's a perfectly valid way of doing it. Even if you can afford it, if you just don't want the games clogging the space because you're never going to touch them again, why bother keeping them? Pass it on. Okay, so right now I've demonstrated how I can be. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, currently, Jurassic World Evolution 2, This War of Mine, and The Outer Worlds are on Game Pass.
This War of Mine. Thessaly told me to try that, I think.
That is an unbelievable game.
She told me to try Jurassic World as well. Not a huge Jurassic Park fan, but I'll give it a go. Fine, that's fine. I'm okay with being wrong.
Just those 3 games is enough to cover everybody.
So I've demonstrated how I'm a grumpy old fuck and I hate change. I've complained about the Switch. I've complained about the PlayStation exclusives that I don't like. I've complained about the way people.
I don't like the price of games at the minute. Why on earth are they $70? Which is going to translate to 70 quid in the UK store.
It is, yeah.
Also, stop buying new versions of FIFA.
70.
Thankfully, they're not making FIFA. EA aren't doing FIFA anymore. It's now being whatever it's being called, some form of sport game. Stop buying the new Call of Duty every year. It's the same as last year's.
No, I disagree with that one. But based on someone who
for
plays
the campaign,
campaigns,
not for the multiplayer.
Yeah, I play the campaigns, not the multiplayer. Right now, what they should do is separate the two, though. I think so because they've got like Warzone
that's what they sort of did with Warzone, but then people still like the. If you don't like battle royales, then that's all Warzone is.
That's the point I was going to make, though. Was all you need to do is go into Warzone and add all your multiplayer modes in there. Keep it as a battle royale, but then have a separate menu to navigate to put all your multiplayer modes in there as well. And then centralize your Call of Duty multiplayer, and then you can have yearly or bi-yearly releases of crafted campaigns, because the stories that they put together are absolutely breathtaking. When I played Infinite Warfare, I wasn't really expecting much, because people just like naturally say, "Oh, the new people just naturally say, "Oh, the new one's shit" or whatever." But Infinite Warfare was one of the most touching campaigns I've ever played. A robot made me cry when I played that game. A robot that admits to itself that it's a still learning artificial intelligence got me with the most emotional lines in that game. It was so well put together. It was well paced. It had unique gameplay elements that weren't intrusive or a pain to get hold of. It was just a stellar voice cast that I never even bothered to look into who was playing who. It was just perfect. It was so well put together.
You've missed though with your plan of putting it all on Warzone.
What's that?
People wouldn't buy the new version. The majority of people buy Call of Duty for the multiplayer. They do. It's a fact of life.
Yeah.
They may be wrong, but that's what they do. And each year they sell it for 50, 60, potentially £70.
Okay, that's fine, but I would just like to point out that Fortnite has the income of a small country and is a free-to-play game.
Granted, yes, and Warzone has a very high one as well.
Exactly. So if you implement...
But that's why these days what they do is they sell a 70 quid game and then add the skins.
I get what you're saying, but it's more expensive to produce that 70 quid game than it is to keep updating your multiplayer free-to-play game. Yeah, I imagine it would be...
You look at some of them, they're generally 2 or 3 at a time. They're all on the same engine. It's just new maps. It's a DLC.
Yeah, but then you've got to market it as a new game.
£70 DLC.
You market, yeah, but then you've got to market it as a new game, which costs a shit ton. With each new,
see, they don't need. I know they do, but you don't need to market them. You could just one day send out a tweet saying "New Call of Duty coming out." It would fly across social media as it does, and that is all it needs. But maybe make a small trailer.
But like you say, people flock to hype games. They've got to create that hype with a nice trailer and announce.
But then, FIFA doesn't really advertise that much.
No, but do you know what does advertise FIFA?
They don't need to.
Is the Premier League, is the Champions League, is the World Cup.
Even then, games. There are certain games. FIFA, Gran Turismo is one of them. Forza's one of them. Halo's are one of them, and Call of Duty's. They are big enough and they have a cult enough following to market themselves. It's not even a cult following these days, to be honest. It's just generic man wants FIFA. Women want it as well and all that lot, but their key market is men in their 12 to 30.
You reckon?
That's their key market. Yeah, of course it is.
You don't reckon it's older now? Because you've got to remember that people who were
but then the older ones will still get it, granted, but not as many of them. There are people that are gonna.
I don't think that's true. We're moving into when you talk about demographics,
the generation may be moving with us. Obviously,
that's what I'm saying.
When you look at demographics like the newest one,
you tend to consider the fact that people at the age of your parents don't want to play games. Now, people who were the age of our parents when we were kids is a completely different generation to the people. Like, I'm a parent now, and I still follow what games are coming out. I still play games in my downtime, and I'm much more competent at the age I am now than my parents were at this age.
Yes, but
I'll remain that into my old age.
I'd still say there are, like, out of my friends now that I have that play games, there are people that I used to play games with that don't anymore.
Yeah.
And each year that number gets higher and higher. And granted, it could maybe not 30, maybe even 40 or 50, but there is a point when we start to stop. Not everybody does. There are some of us that will keep going. I assume I'm one of them.
But that percentage will probably get higher and higher because owning a games console.
But then, do you market a game to a lowering percentage, or the fact that you know that every 12-year-old bloke who's into football,
you don't
which
market
is a
to a lower
huge
percentage,
portion of
but you
the
need
UK,
to make sure that you are okay. Let's take something you're familiar with here, something that relies on exactly what we're talking about here is World of Warcraft. It relies now almost exclusively on returning players. That's who it markets to. That's who it appeals to, and that's who it tries to keep hold of. Because I've at your I wouldn't say recommendation because you've not tried to, but I've dipped my toes back into World of Warcraft, and currently the new this is what I wanted to speak about because I demonstrated that I've been a grumpy old bastard who's afraid of change. But MMOs as a games genre is something that I would steer clear of. It's not something that I always find a gameplay loop hits a paywall, or that it's just not engaging enough to hold me. And that comes from like bigger MMOs as well. You know, the most like the top 5 I think is what World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14,
Lord of the Rings, Final Fantasy, Eve.
I don't think Lord of the Rings is in there. So hang on, let me just list the list that I found. It was World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14. I think RuneScape was on there. Elder Scrolls Online, and there was another one.
Eve.
No, it was
it's not an RPG, but that is an RPG.
Yeah, it was something more fantasy oriented. I can't think what it was.
Black Desert.
Neverwinter, was it, or Warframe, or something like that? It was something.
Warframe is. It's not. Warframe's a weird one. Warframe's a good game.
It's kind of it's multiplayer. It's online, but it's instanced. Yeah. Anyway,
it's not an open world RPG.
No, it's not. But it's
game. That's the point. If anyone hasn't played Warframe and is looking for a good, really fun, weird time sink game, the one that you'll just sink hours into, or you can do it for 10 minutes. You don't need to sink hours into it. Play Warframe. Really good game.
It's instanced in like 10-15 minute missions, and the combat is so nice to play.
It's very much a bullet fly game.
Yeah,
just put bullets everywhere, but it's also pretty.
Yeah, it's
fun to jump and spin through the air as fast as you can.
Really well animated. It's so fluid. It's such a well crafted experience. It's got the same problems that most online games have, where you'll have like cooldowns or timers that you can pay real money to speed up, which is fine, I guess. I don't think it's actually fine, but it is what it is. It's
if you want to progress in Warframe, just watch one person play it on Twitch and get the drops from it.
Yeah, I suppose you could do that too. So anyway, what I was trying to say,
stick the Twitch on in the background, or someone who's got the drops. You've got to watch for 4 hours. Put it on and do something else. Come back 4 hours later, you get the best skin at the minute, or the best frame at the minute.
So I dipped my toes back into World of Warcraft because I've been playing Lord of the Rings online.
Retail, classic, or
retail?
Master of thingy.
Retail.
So it's Shadowlands.
Is that what it's called?
Because obviously the thing is, WoW these days, you have what we call retail, which is the current version, expansion 8, as we discussed earlier. It's called Shadowlands. Blah 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 blah. You then have classic, which is currently what they did is they re-released vanilla as it was. a few minor changes and fixes and tweaks sort of thing, but fixes rather than changing. Not even quality of life ones.
Was there not?
It was more bug fixes and workarounds to make it work on the modern engine. But the whole point, obviously, these days, if I wanted to, I could grind to max level on retail in maybe 8 hours. That's going slow. That's grinding while stopping for cigarettes and food and all that lot. People can do it in like 2-3 hours. If I wanted to play as I play, to grind up on Classic, I'm talking 3 or 4 days. In reality, a casual person playing on Classic, you're talking, especially for the first time, you're talking months.
Months. Okay, so...
When I first played WoW, when I played Vanilla when it first came out, it took me about a year to get to max level. Because it was just so much harder.
I spent a lot of time...
But then also you have Master of Seasons, or whatever it's called, which is Classic again, because Classic is now on the first expansion, releasing on the second expansion later this year. So they really released just Classic, Vanilla, and they're going to keep refreshing it on Vanilla by the sounds of it. So there's 3 versions of it now.
Not an ad. So
I'm just explaining it.
No, I know.
If people do want to play it, go, if it's your first time playing WoW, go to retail.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not my first time. I've played on 2 occasions. Once on my own back in the 3rd expansion or something like that, or 2nd, whatever it was, and once with you,
I think we worked out it was the 2nd.
Is that what it was? And then once with you, which was a totally botched experience.
Yes.
So, at your advice, actually, so it was kind of recommendation. You told me to play it on my own. Okay, so
yeah, I've told you that for about 2-3 years.
Yeah, you have. Yeah. But like I say, MMOs are not something I would actively seek out to do. So I just sort of stick it on an arbitrary to-do list. Now I watched a review a few months ago for Lord of the Rings Online, which is something I had previously tried, and it had quite a lot of positive points to it. And now Tolkien's World is something I'm familiar with already. Well, you can say clunky, but like mechanically, it's not discernibly different to World of Warcraft to me in any way whatsoever. And your biased opinion doesn't count for anything there, unfortunately.
No, it doesn't, but I find it clunky.
Yeah, well, you can find it clunky. It's fine, and I find it clunky too, but in the same way that all MMOs
are your phone ringing?
It's my phone ringing.
Is it? Okay, because it's the same ringtone as my phone.
Which both buy the cheapest phone, apparently.
Yeah.
So I dipped my toes back into Lord of the Rings Online, and the advice that I was given from the review, I watched 2 or 3 reviews, was to take my time and just absorb the world and don't worry about grinding to max level, which is fantastic advice for me, because one of the biggest problems I have is that there seems to be this sort of desperation to get to max level and keep up with everybody, and I hate that. I hate that sort of dynamic to the game of when I leave, I'll come back, and if I was playing with somebody, they could have carried on playing while I was gone, and they're well ahead of me, then I've either got to catch up or they've got to slow down. So it's like, the draw of a multiplayer game is that you're playing with friends. Surely that's the point. Otherwise, I'll just go and play Elder Scrolls. So I've discovered that you can quite competently play 90% of the content of Lord of the Rings Online in a single player format. You do have to skip out some things, so like there are some large dungeons that require parties that kind of cut off from me. Mostly because I just don't want to interact with the community that much. My interactions with the community have been completely wholesome and helpful, and Charlotte's being really loud on the phone right now, but she needs to be heard as well, so I've not really much I can say to her. So there's not... It's my fault that I've not done those bits of content, because if I know that if I asked, they would say, yeah, I've got an account or a character that's that level, let's go do it together, because everyone is just so nice that I've come across. I'm sure there's the toxic individuals out there, there always is. And I've put 35 hours in, something like that. I don't know, I'd have to check Steam, but anyway, I've enjoyed myself. Now, based on what you said about Lord of the Rings Online being clunky and World of Warcraft doing everything better, and I can fully believe that it does. It's there's a reason it's kept hold of such a large player base. So I thought, you know what, screw this, I'll give it a go. Now you can sign up for a free trial. So I've made a burner email to make an account, and I thought let's go in and experience the new player experience. That's not you and Arthur and Connor and yelling at me saying just fucking heal us, shut up, go this way, blah blah blah, because it just became a very baffling, fast-paced, pointless experience for me. So I went in as a new player and I dipped my toes into it. And when you say that you found the combat clunky in Lord of the Rings Online, I cannot see a difference
Low level WoW is clunky.
How I don't see how it can expand into anything other than having more skills to spam, and that's it.
But then obviously the thing with high level WoW playing, especially when you're tanking it and healing are a bit different because it's situational what spell you use at one point. Yeah. When you come to DPS, there is a most efficient way you can do it.
Right, that's fine, James, but I'm not looking to play the game as the most efficient.
You're not, but I'm saying
this
is why I find. I said low level WoW I find clunky as well because there's a lot of dead time. You hit a spell and then you're waiting.
Yeah.
The thing with high level,
that's what I said to you though, is that you just get more spells to spam. That's it.
Yeah, but then the trick in WoW is how fluid it can flow. You can do a 10-minute fight and not realise you've been there for 10 minutes. You feel like you've been there for a minute because the whole time it flows really nicely. You're going from one spell into the next where you're building up. If say a war, you're using this spell, then this spell, to build up rage to hit your big spell. You see the big number, yay, dopamine. Right, work on it again, build up.
I get
bigger
exactly
number this
that
time.
Function, exactly that function from Lord of the Rings Online.
There's no between. Yeah, it's really hard to explain. It's just one of those ways that the way a proper DPS in WoW runs, if you set your keyboard up nice and all that, you'll literally flow. It's almost like. It's going to sound really cliche, and you're going to hate me for what I say this, and most people are going to hate me for what I say it, but it's almost like making music. Your hand flows across the keyboard, and you just keep flowing in that same pattern, or similar pattern. You adjust slightly because the fight's moved. You've got to change your position slightly to keep that, but you've got to keep that flow going in the background the whole time. And I love it. I absolutely adore it. I know it sounds stupid and cheesy as fuck, and don't even comment on it.
I hit level 40-something on Lord of the Rings Online, and I have 2 abilities that are locked behind situational skill uses already, and I have to follow the flow. I have to make sure I do things in the right order to hit the final ability to get the big number. I know what you're talking about. I understand what you're saying.
There's just dead time.
I don't want dead time. What do you mean? How is the dead time?
I never got as high in.
Okay, so there are these
Lord of the Rings. This is the thing: is Lord of the Rings at a high level might be fine, but at low level it feels like WoW does. So WoW is the same at low level. Is you until you're about even on WoW, you've got to be talking level 40, 50. Okay. Even then, it's not really to your max level because you've got to do different builds for level. You don't have to, but if you do different builds for leveling, it's easier. It makes the leveling process easier and quicker, which is what I do it for. See, I don't enjoy the leveling process anymore. And so once you hit that max level and you respec and you readjust into your dungeon spec or your questing spec or your Torghast spec or your raid spec or whatever. But yeah, it's just the way. It sounds really stupid. I'm going to use the term again with music. Is for argument's sake, generally when I play WoW, my spells tend to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, T, F, G, V, B. Tends to be the order I flow my hand in. But I set it up so I'm pretty much doing that across my keyboard. I'm doing a curve across my keyboard the whole time. But I'm moving around the fight. I'm paying attention. I'm seeing what other people are doing. I'm picking up this fucking ball and throwing it over here. But you've got to try and keep that flow going the whole time. And that's what I like. And it's that flow that I like about raiding, which you may get in Lord of the Rings at max level.
Okay, so taking your own standards for which you're judging World of Warcraft by, and me having had a very similar experience in Lord of the Rings Online, now I need to consider a couple of things here. When my free trial for World of Warcraft runs out, I then have to start paying. Yes. And that means that if I do start to enjoy it the same way, I am then locked behind a paywall, or I'll have to start another free trial or whatever, and then lose my progress. Now, when it comes to playing Lord of the Rings Online, everything except the latest expansion is free to play, which means that I've got many, 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 many hours ahead of me. Because I've hit level 40-something, I'm only in the second area of the game. There's like another 20 areas for me to explore. And sure, I'll be out-leveled for some of them, but I'll still be able to experience it. And then by the time I get there, it's only going to cost me like 25 quid to get the next expansion, which is going to be a lot more content for me. And plus, there is a way in the game to grind the in-game currency, which I will probably get close to doing, to buy the expansion with the in-game premium currency, because you get awarded it for stuff.
Buy playtime with WoW with in-game currency.
What, like the gold?
Yes.
Right. Is it expensive? Would it be possible for me on my free trial to then buy it?
Not on a free trial, no. You wouldn't get that on a free trial.
Okay. So,
but I do have people that have played for the last, since they released the feature probably about 5 years ago actually, have never paid for WoW since. They've always done it on in-game. But they're the sort of people that can work to an auction house and
I was going to say,
how
like,
to craft and all that lot. They put the time
also,
in for
it's
it.
going to take the dedication of time sinking into the game to do so.
Yes and no.
So if
you're good at economics, no, because you just play the auction house and you can do it. My friend, he says he builds enough to buy his token in about an hour or two of working the auction house.
In order to do
come in and he's done.
In order to do the auction house like that, surely you have to have something worth selling.
You have to have the initial capital. Not only that, what he does is he buys things that are priced a bit cheap and sells them at high prices.
Okay, but you have
to have
the
initial capital. Yeah.
Yes. So I would still have to pay for a month. Given my experience in the game, I would still have to pay for a month or maybe 2 months of the game to get to the point.
To be able to do that, you need to either know the game well or.
Yes. So it's still locked behind. There are guides.
Yes, it is locked behind a paywall.
I was going to say locked behind a paywall. I was going to say locked behind a huge time sink. Whereas now, I don't want to dedicate that much time to a game. So I'm playing Lord of the Rings online. I can stop playing for 6 months, come back, not lose any progress, not have to spend any money, and pick up where I left off.
See, WoW's biggest drawback, I'd say,
I think WoW's
thing that does
drawback,
stop people playing it is its subscription base. But
I don't even think that's the point. I think WoW's biggest drawback at the minute, given what I've experienced so far, its biggest drawback is itself. I think it's damaging to itself.
The thing with WoW is dying. There's no getting around it. WoW is dying, and within, I'd say, maybe 4 or 5 years, WoW will be dead. They will stop
have to die, though. It's such a sad story. I think it's being run stupidly. Now, it has
been run badly. It's been run really badly. Ever since Activision bought it, it's been run bad.
I've been looking for a few facts for you for this specific conversation, and I'm only going to throw one at you. And because there's plenty of things that are like, speculation, hearsay, blah blah blah, and situational, whatever. The most successful thing World of Warcraft done recently is release WoW Classic. That brought back the most players, and it brought in a lot of new players too. But the problem I've got with that is the most successful thing you did for your long-standing and undeniably the king of the genre for your long-standing game. The best thing you did recently was remove 17 years of content. 17 years of work and additions and supposed upgrades to your game. You take them all out and suddenly people are happier. That tells me that you are running your game incorrectly.
This is the difference, is Classic did not bring new players in. It may have brought some, it did not bring new players in. It brought old players back.
But it was the most successful thing they did. So why can Classic bring it in?
Let me try and say what I'm trying to say.
I'm
trying to argue, tell you the reason, but it's a little bit of an explanation. So give me a minute, and then you'll get there. Okay.
Okay.
Building up. WoW started with vanilla, obviously, and I said it was hard. BC was hard. Lich King was hard. Starting to ease up a little bit. Kata was where they started to get more player friendly, make it a little bit easier, but it was still hard. The end raid was shit. I'm not even going to gloss into that. Everyone hates it. Actually, I enjoyed it at first, but now we hate it. We had it for like 9 months. We just got fucking bored of it. It was only 8 bosses, and you do the same 8 bosses for 9 months. You get bored of them.
Yes, I imagine you would.
They took too long to release the next expansion. And that was at the point Activision bought them. That's when it became Activision Blizzard. And they started to simplify the game. Even by Kata and Mop, it was simplified. But they made it simpler and easier. They made it simpler and easier. Every time they removed... In Lich King, when we were doing it, we had Excel spreadsheets to input the numbers in to work out the exact fine balance of how to get the best damage, which gems you wanted, which enchants you wanted. You had a choice of 80 different talents. Well, 80 points to spend in your talents. So that was all min-maxing and all that lot. And people love that. People love the challenge. The fact that you had to really think about it. That's why Eve still does well in its niche market, because you have to really think about what you're doing. If people want a simple game, they'll play Minecraft. That's also what holds it back from
getting bigger.
But that was... these are the times it was growing. These are when it was at 11 million, 15 million... Oh, Eve, sorry, yeah. Eve's got an insane learning curve. It's weird. But WoW, when it was at its hardest, was when it was at 11 million. I think it hit 15 million subs at one point. Consecutively, each month after month, they were holding
numbers
between 10 to 15 million. It was definitely 11. I know that much was hit. And they were holding that consistently. That was, Lich King days. Then Kata came out, and Kata, so it started to simplify, and they started losing players. So they thought, I know, we'll appeal to new people, we'll make the game easier. So they lost more veteran players. And we'll make the game easier. So they lost more veteran players. And they've been losing veteran players staggering. They then brought Mythic Plus in, which sort of plateaued it, and brought some veterans back, because there was a... Mythic Plus is, in theory, a never-ending difficulty challenge. You can do the dungeon, And if you do it it's timed and all that lot. If you do it in time, you get a key for the next level. So you do it, what you call, you do your M0 is just Mythic. That's when you get your key. And then you'll get a +2 key. So you do Mythic 2. And if you do that in time, if you do that in free skull time or free chest time, you'll get a +5 key. But if you only do it in 2 plus time, you get a +4. If you fail it, you then get a +1 key. So your keys change and your difficulties. And as they get harder, they add more what's called affixes. So I think the affix thresholds are, I think it's 1, 7, 1, 5, 7, 11. But I could be wrong on that. It's been a long time since I've done Mythic Plus.
What does that mean?
What the affixes are is they add an extra difficulty. So one of them could be exploding, is one of the ones. So every time you kill a mob, it leaves
modifier.
Modifiers, exactly. It leaves a ball behind, which you have to kill, else it's going to explode and damage people. There's one called Volcano, which every now and again a volcano appears under your feet and you have to move off it, else the volcano goes off. You get teaming and swarming and all that lot. So sometimes the bosses are harder, sometimes the mobs are harder. You've also got to hit a certain amount of mobs, so you can't just skip them all and kill the bosses and all that lot. But you can go, in theory, you can go to a +50. I think the highest that has been done is a +37. They have the esport version, which is generally done at +30. So it's 30 levels more difficult than the standard top difficulty. But that adds that scaling challenge that makes it fun for people. That's what kept people around. They do the raid, and then Mythic Plus is what matters, and that's what people enjoy, and that's where you get... It's almost higher than raiding these days for some people. And so that's then plateaued the player base, kept the veterans in, it gave them something, gave them a challenge. And if anything, it brought a few back. But the ones that had already properly left missed the nostalgia factor as well. That was the other thing Classic brought, was the nostalgia.
Yeah.
We all remembered, I didn't get into Classic as it happened actually, but most of us remembered when we were 12, 13, 14, up to 20s and 30s, when we were nerd sweating, LAN parties, pizza and Monster and all that lot. Your mates were over and one guy sat on the floor because you ran out of chairs, and you've got 8 extension leads running off the same socket, and your house trips out of power and you die mid-raid and all that lot. That's what Vanilla was for some people. So that's another reason Vanilla did so well and brought so many people back, was because they were remembering the glory days.
Well, it raises more questions for me, you see, because you then skip over to... I would guess that the second biggest one is Final Fantasy 14. I didn't look at
the minute, most likely, yeah.
Yeah.
Or Black Desert. But then Black Desert's big in Asia. So
yeah,
that's the thing.
Okay, well, let's stick with the stuff that's big over here.
Western, it's probably Final Fantasy, yeah.
Yeah.
Granted, WoW and Final Fantasy are both big in Asia as well, but...
Yeah, of course. But so let's just jump ship for a second to Final Fantasy 14, which looks like it's moving from strength to strength. You know, I get more and more recommendations from that game from the various sources.
It does seem to be going really well, actually, now. It's left... The thing with MMOs is they always do well to begin with, but then they die.
Yeah, whereas this
Final Fantasy seems to have got through its first hump.
Yeah,
it's got through its first hump,
and it seems to be going from strength to strength, which is great. But what are they adding to their secret sauce that is drawing in players whilst World of Warcraft is losing players?
Something different.
Don't
forget, you say WoW. We've played WoW for 16, 17 years.
Yeah.
They were getting to the point where I'm still going to play the next expansion, but the story of this one was just fucking... Beforehand, I love the lore of WoW. You know I love the lore of WoW.
I know you
But
do, yeah.
for the last 2-3 expansions, I've not cared on it, because they've just retconned it and butchered it and chopped random shit in just to give you the big shock, wow, cliche moments. Back to The Last of Us. That's what they're trying to do now. And it's not working for me anymore, and it's not working for a lot of players anymore. We don't care about the lore. We still do it because, again, this is going to sound weird for people that don't play MMOs, but we've already discussed it with a couple of our mates. When the new one, which is called Dragonflight, releases, we're all taking a week off work. We'll all be on at midnight, and we'll probably go to bed at about 10 o'clock that morning, wake up 5 hours later and start again, and we'll smash out to the max level as a big group together, because it's what we've done every single time. And then we'll play it for 2 months and get bored of it, because it's the same shit we've had for the last 17 years.
That's a really sad story, though, to me, because that suggests to me that it's either an addiction or an abusive gameplay cycle.
Both.
But that's
you
not...
You never quit WoW, you only take a break.
But that's not a good selling point for a video game, is it? That's not
no,
fun.
It's not, but that's what I'm saying. That's why WoW is dying, is it's
habit.
It's hard for new people to get... hard for new people to get into it. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to quit after a month or 2. I want the game to keep me.
No, I know, and I don't want to see a game die either. And because as much as I don't like MMOs, they have a place in society. They are a perfectly valid choice of game.
I think when WoW falls, something will take its place.
Something has to.
That's what the problem. Every MMO, the biggest problem every MMO has had. Black Desert, RuneScape. Well, maybe not RuneScape, because RuneScape's a bit of a weird one. It's a bit different.
RuneScape's still hugely successful.
Yeah, but even Final Fantasy, Lord of the Rings. I can't think of any others. Wildlands, something like that. There was one I can't remember. Black Desert. Any RPG MMO you can think of, there is one consistent problem they all have.
Grind.
Nope.
What?
It's not WoW.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
That's their biggest problems. If WoW wasn't there, if for argument's sake, we'll go for Black Desert, because I played that quite a lot. I actually quite enjoyed that. If that was the only MMO available properly in the West, it would be huge. If Lord of the Rings was the only MMO properly available in the West, it'd be huge. Final Fantasy, same thing. But they've all got the key problem of WoW exists. And WoW is the king.
But here we're reaching a strange point in this discussion, because now we're saying that WoW is riddled with problems. It's struggling to keep its old players. It's struggling to bring in new players. It's not as fun as it used to be. They're
struggling with discussing. They're still holding 5-6 million subs a month.
Yes, but that's a fraction of what they had.
It is a fraction of what they had.
It's a fraction of what they had, and it's fallen. So, in your opinion, as a hardcore player, in your opinion, as an ex-hardcore player, you think it's going to disappear, or not disappear, but crumble to its knees in the next 4 or 5 years?
This unpopular opinion, I kind of want it to, because I want to see what's next.
Well, yeah, but you see,
Blizzard have some amazing artists. Some cinema. If you've never watched cinematics, look up the Wrathgate for an old cinematic on WoW. Google Wrathgate, or Google the Fourth War Funeral, or Saurfang's Funeral. It could be called either of them. You just see the cinematics, see how good some of the artists, the animators. If you ever get interested, read some of the WoW books. Read the I can't think what they're called. But there's a series about someone called Boxagar or Ronin, either of them, both those series. The books of them, they are brilliant. The story is immersive and epic. But we've had it for 17 years, so why don't we get those devs, those artists, those writers, those fucking animators, I don't know much about making games, these are the people I know of, and see what else they can do.
Why is it that we have two parallel narratives running side by side that don't make any sense? That we have a game that is falling in reputation and isn't quite swinging its weight around the way it used to, but at the same time its closest competition suffers from the problem that this game still exists. Surely those two narratives can't run parallel.
They're not parallel. The way I see it at the minute is, we'll probably use Final Fantasy because it is the biggest at the minute. Final Fantasy is on the up as WoW is on the down. Final Fantasy has hit the right time. All the ones that I've struggled for, and Lord of the Rings, it's too old at this point. It's not going to.
Is it not the conclusion that we can jump to there that what's next is Final Fantasy 14?
Quite possibly, but then I don't. The thing is,
because that's quite an aged game now, really.
You need to pull the big. We'll call them the current hardcore players from WoW. So it needs to capture them. And they're not going to quit. Say Blizzard decide to turn off fucking WoW servers tomorrow. Those players are not going to go to Final Fantasy now. Those players are going to want a break. They're going to hit the next one. When WoW finally shuts down, the next one, if they get it right, if they don't screw it up and they don't try and do anything stupid, will go huge, in my opinion. And you can hold me to that.
I don't need to hold you to it, but
if it gets enough hype and it hooks those dedicated hardcore players that WoW has, they'll hold that game and they'll love that game. And you speak to any WoW veteran and they all say the game's shit, it's stupid, the story's been butchered so much, it's been messed up. But then they say, what is your favourite game and what's the game you played the most and all that lot, and they'll all say WoW.
Yeah.
I say Portal was my favourite game, and Portal was one of my favourite games. But in reality, the game I've played the most, the game I enjoy the most, the game I have the best memories from is WoW.
Yeah, and that's fine. Some of the game I have the best memories of is Dynasty Warriors, and that's a bag of shit.
And part of the reason the memories of WoW come from the people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the social aspect is a huge draw for it.
Yes, but WoW's social aspect works because, let's face it, the reason we know each other is because of WoW, like Connor.
Yeah.
The reason 90% of the people in the Discord, or my friends in the Discord, so I know them, is because of WoW.
Yeah.
Granted, one of our friends, Claw, I met not because of WoW, I met differently, but we played WoW together.
You see, I was pondering.
I'm just looking at my friends list on Discord at the minute. It's like WoW player, WoW player, WoW player, WoW player, WoW player, WoW player, bot, WoW player, WoW player, WoW player. Pete, who's also a WoW player now.
I was pondering all these different possibilities before because the subject of MMOs for some reason has caught my attention, and it's something I've sank a lot of time into thinking about and experimenting with, which is, just a thing. It's just a phase I'm going through, Mum, don't worry. And I reached an odd conclusion when I was thinking about it, and I've saved it for the end because it's something that we could maybe talk about next week, is that people's relationship with World of Warcraft, and the same could be said for anybody who's a hardcore player of a game, even though all they talk about is its flaws, you'll find that they have the same attitude towards the game as someone in a toxic relationship has with their partner.
Quite possibly. WoW is toxic.
WoW's as toxic as you let it be. If you let the people get to you or interact with the wrong crowd, then it's toxic. But what I'm trying to say is the game itself, not the community. The game itself.
The community is toxic, but it's not that toxic compared to a lot of games. And I wouldn't say I have toxic experience from WoW. I've met some bad people and all that lot, but you do in any game.
No,
the relationship with WoW is toxic. But then the reason we go back is because it's not because we think it's going to be better. It's because we know we're going to have fun.
I think the reason that you go back, actually, James, is because every time an expansion comes out, is you want to have those feelings that you had those years ago when you really were genuinely enjoying it. You want to relive that era. You're hoping that each time you come up with something, it will give you those feelings again, which is perfectly valid. You're allowed to want that because that's basically what they promise every time they bring a expansion out.
You know the big thing, Pete? It will. Because
it will, but only temporarily.
Yes, but WoW only was temporary. The thing that made WoW fun for me back in the days when I was doing raiding stupid hours, 6 hours a night sort of thing, what made it fun is still the same thing that makes it fun now. And this is a really wholesome thought to end this on. It's the people.
Okay, and I'm going to ruin your wholesome thought to end it on. The way you feel about World of Warcraft and the fact that you're comfortable with World of Warcraft is the same reason that I've spent 15 years in a job I don't care about. Because it's comfortable, it's easy, it's what I'm used to. And I think that's what you and a lot of other players suffer with. Because you constantly...
That, but I've tried all of the MMOs, except
I know you have, but the problem you've got is that you are not as familiar with them. And you never will be until you sink the same amount of hours into them.
I put like 300 hours into Black Desert.
But that's nowhere near what you spent on World of Warcraft, James.
I was hooked in WoW in that time, but I never got hooked in Black Desert. I just did it because there was nothing else to do.
Exactly. And so that one wasn't for you. But it's still, you didn't gain the familiarity with it. It didn't create the same sense of adventure that you had. It didn't create the same sense of community that you had. And what you've got is WoW being a comfort blanket. It's not what you want it to be. It's not what it used to be. It's not what it should be. But you are used to it and it's comfortable and you will continue to go back because it's comfortable. The same way I will continue to go to work every day because it's just easy.
I don't agree with that.
You don't have to agree with it. But there are massive similarities between the way you talk about World of Warcraft and the way I talk about my job.
If I started WoW now and got into it like I did back in the day, I haven't got the time to get back into it like I did back in the day. But say I was a 13-year-old lad who just picked it up because his dad was playing it. That's why I started. Now, and I got hooked into it the same way I did, I would probably be raiding hardcore now because the raiding is still fun. The problem is for us is,
I disagree.
The raiding, in my opinion, is fun. If you're the sort of
I'm not disagreeing with it being fun. I'm disagreeing that you would still be raiding because what I think would happen is you know how you say you get bored of it in 2 months. The reason I get bored of it is because it's the same stuff I did 10 years ago. Yes, but if you had the time now to raid hardcore, you would just get bored of it in 6 weeks or a shorter period of time.
But this is what I'm saying. If I'd never played WoW before, if I started WoW now as the 13-year-old I was when I first started WoW, I'd get hooked into it just as much as I did back then.
What about if WoW was released now? So forget the years of experience with it.
Yeah.
What about if... Okay, well, hang on. What about if WoW and Final Fantasy XIV, as they are now, were released now? Which one do you think would hold your attention the most?
I said the reason I started WoW was because my dad was playing it. It's whichever one I get recommended.
I'm trying to
first.
say, like, objectively, if you remove all the emotional hooks you've got to it,
I don't know enough about Final Fantasy. I've not even looked at it. I just know I'm not going to enjoy it because I don't like the Final Fantasy universe.
Well, that's fair enough. It's not for everybody.
That's a hard. The better one would probably be Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Well, you see, now there are obvious quality differences that I
never
noticed.
considered an MMO until someone recommended it to me. Let's face it, 90% of the games I play are on recommendation.
These days, 90% of the games I play are on your recommendation.
Exactly.
Even though I've got so many games I've bought myself on my own feelings and thoughts, I still haven't launched them.
I see adverts that pop up for games and all that, and I go, yeah, that looks interesting. Not going to buy it. Yeah, that looks interesting.
I do the same thing.
That looks interesting. Not going to buy it. But I get a message from Claude saying, do you want to play this weekend? We played Firefighting Simulator the other week. That was a really weirdly bad game.
Simulation games are so involving.
I wish it was still being devved. It's not being devved anymore, but otherwise it was great. And I loved it, but then it's because I like playing. I've always liked social games. I've never been a single player, really. Yeah. Bar a few games, I don't play single player games. These days, I can't remember the last time I launched a single player game, bar RimWorld.
See, I have a very warped perspective of MMOs because I'm more of a single player gamer. I don't like the key difference. Forced interactions.
But I can remember when I was 13, 14, my dad didn't live with us. He lived up in Wales. But he'd come down. My uncle also played WoW. And he'd come down and we'd all take our computers over to my uncle's. My dad would stay with my uncle when he was down for like a week over the holidays or whatever, so like seeing me, seeing his mum, etc. I'd take my computer down and all three of us would sit until the god of early hours in the morning getting a famous 5 pizza from Favourite Pizza, which is the best pizza you could ever get. I wish they hadn't closed. Those two would be drinking and I'd have to go get the drinks because I was the kid, but I might be allowed like a WKD if I was good. And we'd sit and play till 2, 3 in the morning. That's what I loved about WoW, and that's why it hooked me, because of that social aspect. And then I finally got to max level. I got old enough that I could join my own guild, join my own team speaks or mumbles or vents back in the day. This is before Discord, obviously. And make my own friends, and then every night we'd all come home from school or work or all that lot. We'd log in and we'd chat. Same as when we do for Dota now. We'd jump on for Dota. Go, yeah, how was your day? Yeah, not bad. We're playing the game and we're asking silly, as well as playing the game and talking about the game, we're having conversations and we're being social at the same time. And that's what hooked me about WoW. And that's what I still enjoy about WoW, and that's what I enjoy about gaming full stop, is social side of it. If it wasn't for gaming, I'd have no friends, bar colleagues.
Well, you are a genuinely unlikable person, so, you know. Okay,
but then I'd have to be playing sport, in all honesty. If it wasn't for that, I'd end up playing sports just for something to do. I took video games because other people take sports. That's how I view them, and that's how I enjoy them. Fair enough. And that's why I love WoW, valid. And still love WoW.
And no one can ever tell you you're wrong, because it's a perfectly valid way of doing things. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up now because this
is a long one.
It's not quite as long. Well, it's not as long as the one you left 40 minutes of silence on.
Also,
okay.
No. Fuck you to the viewers that said that was the best podcast because of the 40 minutes of silence. Screw you guys.
You know what? I can't help but agree with them.
Shut up, you.
Well, okay. Before we go, this is one of the few podcasts where we haven't spoken directly to our audience and asked them something. So what I would like to ask you something as we're leaving here, because this sort of thing is really piquing my interest at the minute. Can you name a game that you were really, really, really enjoying up until the point that it asked you for money? Like, whether it was forcibly, like locking some content behind a paywall, or whether it just started pushing pay-to-win elements, or just throwing the cash up advert at you every now and again. If you can name a few games like that for me.
I've raised my hand for some reason. Do you know what mine was for that one? Just as get the ball rolling. World of Tanks and World of Warplanes and World of Warships. I love those games until you hit one's tanks, one's planes, one's warships. Otherwise, they're the same game, yeah.
Yeah.
They're really fun at low levels because you're rushing through, you're getting through the equipment, playing the planes quickly that people aren't paying to win because it's pointless. Until you hit about tier 8, tier 7 to 10, and then everybody's got all the premium planes, boats, trains, automobiles, and then it's just pay to win, and it annoys me and I stop playing them at that point.
So I'd like for you, dear listeners, to reach out to us, Discord, comments, emails, whatever it is you'd prefer to, and tell me about your... Because everybody has a memory or two that sticks out. Tell me about your experience with predatory monetization in games.
Also, tell us if you have got them, your favourite MMOs and any stories about them and the reason you love them. Is it like me because of social? Do you like the lore side of it? Do you like the gameplay? You don't
give me a list of games. I'm currently on a sort of personal adventure to find an MMO that fits me, because it's a genre that I want to explore. Give me recommendations. I will give it a go. Give me recommendations.
Oh no, Lost Ark's your next one to try.
Lost Ark. I've got that one written down already, actually.
Yeah, I told you to try that one.
Yeah, find me an MMO that fits, because it's something I'm finally opening myself to, the possibility of sinking a lot of time into an MMO and enjoying myself.
Lost Ark, you can completely single player bar one aspect, because you don't really need to do it. Just speeds up a little bit. There's a grind to it which you can pay to get through, but we didn't pay, and it only took us 2-3 weeks to push through the grind if we had to.
It's a long time to push through a grind.
That's 2-3 weeks total playtime. And that was to get to tier 4.
Time.
And that was, but then we rushed it as well. There was plenty to explore and have fun doing while you were doing that. We just grinded it out because that's the sort of people we are.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been quite a different word from our mouths, actually, because we stayed on a single topic for the entire thing.
2
topics. Yes.
Consoles and MMOs.
Okay. But it was all very self-contained. I enjoyed myself.
I enjoyed this one, actually. And we could easily keep going for another 2 hours doing this, couldn't we?
Yeah, maybe we'll have to make a second podcast that's just gaming related.
If you want a follow-on to this, let us know. If you're thinking we're just talking bollocks, and you don't want to hear us talk about this
if this is a conversation that you're enjoying, we'll keep it going. And join in, more importantly. Join in with the conversation, because there is so many perspectives to get from this sort of thing. And it's a huge social commentary at the minute. So
we've got a Discord. The link's in the description. It should be on your podcast apps, and it's obviously on YouTube. It's in the bottom. Our Twitter should be on the picture, but it's at our mouths. Follow us on that. If you do, I'll follow you back, so you can DM us if you need to, or you can just tweet us. Obviously, we'll see that. We've got a link tree down there which has got all this information on as well. Obviously, email us wordsfromourmouths@gmail.com. Yeah, there's loads of ways to get in touch with us, and well, we do actually pay attention to it, believe it or not.
And we like always active on Discord.
There are people on our Discord that we talk to. If you comment on YouTube, we'll reply to that. We normally do if you need to comment. So you can join us on Discord. We're always active on that.
Other than that, I think it's we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye.